Hi, it's Michelle, and I am coming to you live from my backyard today. I am sitting in a sea of forget-me-nots and wild onions, and my special guest today is Quan, the goddess of compassion. So she's also known as an aspect of the Divine Mother, which is perfect because today, if you live in the UK, it's Mothering Sunday. And I don't live in the UK, but I celebrate everything everywhere. So I'm taking today to honor my mother. And I'm also using that as a way of offering something to you that you might find useful. So maybe your mom was like Quan Yin. She was nothing but um, unconditional love and compassion all the time. And maybe not. I kind of doubt it because pretty much no mom is. But my mom was a single mom. I was divorced at a very young, when I was 2, and sole custody. So there were many challenges that she had in being a parent, and those challenges affected me. So for a lot of years, I chose to tell that story from a certain angle. So before I tell you about that, I want to tell you about something that I learned in camp. So you take a napkin and you do this with it, and you use it as a storytelling device. It reflects something called Karpman's triangle, which has the victim, the villain, and the hero. So if you remember the Dudley Do-Right cartoons, that's what I always think of when I do this. There was Little Nell, the victim, and Snidley Whiplash, the villain, and Dudley Do-Right, the hero. So the drama went something like this. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent. This would go on and on. But I can't pay the rent. But you must pay the rent. Until finally, the hero would ride in. I'll pay the rent. So, okay, my story was that I was a victim. And poor me, oh no. And my mother was the villain. And I told the story to myself and to others for years. And then I got a little older, a little more mature, and I decided I could be magnanimous. I could upgrade Mom. Now she was no longer the villain. Oh, by the way, I was also a villain many times in my story because of all the wicked things I did as a child and a teenager, and there were plenty of them. But I decided, okay, we were both victims, and I went with that story for a while. But then I decided to recreate, to write a different story. And in this story, I looked for all the ways in which, first of all, my mother and I were allies together in my childhood. And furthermore, we were both heroines on a journey. And the thing that's so cool about this is that when I was able to do this, to recreate this new story, it changed not only my relationship in terms of, I mean, the level of love and respect that I felt for my mother grew enormously, but also the love and respect that I felt for myself. Used a more compassionate lens, as Kuan Yin would see looking through her eyes. So the way in which I did this was similar to what Sean Achor, A-C-H-O-R, did in his work. He's a happiness researcher. So he wrote the book The Happiness Advantage, and he also wrote the more recent book, which was Before Happiness. And in Before Happiness, he tells the story of how he worked with people in a corporation. He had half of these managers watch videos about how stress would kill you, and the other half watched videos and read information about how stress could actually be really advantageous. There were all these really good things that stress could do, and they were both true videos. There was nothing that was false about either one of them. But the ones who watched the second video about stress as being advantageous, oh, by the way, they measured all of their medical responses before and months afterwards, all through the process. And it turned out that the ones who saw the ones about stress as being an advantage actually were healthier and happier and more successful and all of that good stuff. So what he did was he also talked about how you could take whatever story that you were telling in your life and write down all of the facts about what made it a stressful, unpleasant, bad situation for you. But then you write another list. And in that list, you get creative. You use your imagination and you start looking for anything true. It has to be true. You can't just make things up. Um, but you write out a list of true things that might be support a more compassionate way of looking at it, a happier, more advantageous way. And in my case, I was looking for the ways in which both my mother and I were heroines. And there was a ton of it. And now that story feels more true to me than the one that I told before, than either of the ones that I told before. And I like it a lot better. And I think it's a better story to tell, too, because our stories ripple outwards. Okay, so tomorrow is the first new moon of spring. Yay. And a great time for starting anything new in your life. I mean, you got spring, you got the new moon. Why not start a new story? What could you change? What story could you change that you're telling yourself about how you show up in your life? The other thing I want to tell you is an announcement, which is that I am now going to be adding a new service to add to the previous one that I recently birthed into the world, which is working as a guide with people who are in that space between when an old way of life has ended and a new one is still an elusive mystery. It's a space that many of us are in personally right now, and certainly most of us are in the collective. I think we all are. And so the new service, so the previous one is all offered online and via telephone, and you can learn more about that. But if you happen to be in the Bay Area and would like to try the new thing that I'm doing, it is using the other service and adding the addition of going to 7 spots of spectacular beauty, sacred spots, as a matter of fact. Get a little more alliteration going there. On Sundays, 7 Sundays, and it will involve going to different labyrinths and spirals in the wilds of West Marin. So if you're curious to learn more about either one of these and join in with me, you can send me an email. I'll have a better way to access all of this soon, but the technology part is still still part of my new developing story. Anyway, so send me an email at Michelle, Michelle, at sparksandleaps.com. sparksandleaps.com. So I will look forward to hearing from you, and Quan and I are signing off. Happy spring.